Hey, so I wanted to talk about something that I've been struggling for a while, and maybe you have too, and that's saying no. There have been so many moments when I've agreed to something, even though part of myself knew that I was too exhausted for it, or I didn't want to, or maybe I said yes to some plans, even though I wasn't feeling excited about it, and I felt bad turning someone down. And honestly, it's hard not to do that when saying no feels so uncomfortable. I think for a lot of us, myself included, it's because we don't want to disappoint people. We care about maintaining relationships and we worry that saying no might make us seem selfish or unhelpful or unreliable and stuff, right? And I know I'm not alone in this, but the truth is there's so much more going on here. When you feel that discomfort, there's actually some interesting psychological reasons why saying no feels so difficult. And, understanding them can make a big difference in shifting that. Let's break it down because understanding why we struggle with this makes it easier to change. From a young age, many of us learn that being helpful and agreeable is how you earn approval or acceptance. And we get praised for being easygoing or such good helpers. And without even realizing it, we start believing that being liked means always saying yes. The thing is that this need for approval doesn't just disappear when we grow up. So when you say no, it can feel like you're letting someone down, and that is really hard to shake. Our brains are wired to avoid rejection because it feels like a threat to our safety. Evolutionarily, being part of a group was essential for our survival. So the fear of being excluded is almost like it's hardwired into us. Studies have actually recently shown that rejection activates the same part of our brain as physical pain. So when you say no, your brain might interpret it as a risk to your relationships, even when logically you know that it's not that serious. It's like your brain and your mind is screaming, if you say no, they'll be mad at you and you'll lose this connection. And it's easy to get up. It's easy to get caught up in that fear. And you end up saying yes just to avoid that tiny panic that's happening inside. Then there's FOMO, fear of missing out. And let's be real, we've all been there. Saying yes can also feel like a way to stay connected to the people that we care about. Like, what if this is that one opportunity you shouldn't miss? Or what if by saying no, they won't invite you next time and you get left out? The fear of missing out is so powerful because it taps into our basic need of belonging. So even if you're tired or just not in the mood, the thought of being excluded can push you to say yes when you know deep down it's not what you need right now. If you're empathetic, saying no can feel especially hard. And I think it's because you sense other people's disappointment and you don't want to be the reason they feel bad. And that's when frustration that's theirs becomes your frustration. And then the guilt creeps in. If I say no, am I being selfish? It's so easy to slip into that mindset. especially if you care about the person that's asking for your help or support or your attention. So instead of dealing with the discomfort of guilt, we just tend to say yes. But over time, that adds up. That guilt driven yes becomes a habit. And before you know it, you're saying yes to things that drain you as well. So, yeah, saying no is hard, but it's also really important because every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with you, you're saying no to yourself, no to your time, no to your peace of mind, no to your well being. And psychologists have shown that constantly saying yes can lead to burnout. When you stretch yourself so thin, you end up feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and even maybe resentful towards the people that you were trying to please in the first place. And that's not fair to them or to you. So, saying no isn't just about setting boundaries, it's about taking care of yourself. So, you have the energy to show up fully for the things and people that really do matter for you. Okay, so if saying no is a skill, and it really is, how do you get better at it? Here are a few things that have helped me. First thing is to reframe the way you think about saying no. Instead of seeing it as a selfish act, start seeing it as self-respect. It's not about pushing people away, it's about protecting your time and your energy. When you say no to things that drain you, or in that moment that you feel that would drain you, you're creating space for the things that really matter. You're reminding yourself that your time and well-being are valuable, and that's not selfish at all, because when you create that time for yourself, you're filling your own cup so that way you can support those people. Here's a trick I love. It's called channeling your future self. So picture yourself a month from now. Would your future self thank you for saying yes to whatever it was, a request, your presence, or would you feel relieved that you said no? This works because you then tap into what we like to call mental time travel. In that moment, it's easy to get caught up in the pressure to say yes, right? They're waiting on me, I need to say something. But thinking ahead helps you make decisions with your long term well being in mind. It's a way to step out of that moment and ask yourself, what will actually feel good in the long run? Another thing that really helps is an energy audit. Before you respond to a request, ask yourself, does this give me energy or does it drain me? If it feels draining, then it's most likely a no. Even if it's just a mental no, it reminds yourself where your limits are. And that builds up the self awareness to really think about how you feel and tap into your field. Because when you tune into your energy levels, you're better able to recognize your limits and what you're okay with, what you're not. It At the end of the day, it really just helps you regulate your emotions so you don't say yes impulsively just to avoid some guilt that you might experience. So, if saying no directly feels too uncomfortable, you can use soft no's. So, some examples would be, I'd love to help, but I'm at a limit right now. Or that sounds great, but I can't commit to it at the moment. Thank you so much for thinking of me, but I need to sit this one out. These phrases are polite, but they're clear and they allow you to decline whatever offer it is while also showing appreciation. And I tend to think that most people respect that. So those are some examples that you can use if you feel like, I don't know how to say it without saying too much and trying to explain myself, but also I don't want it to seem like I'm not appreciative and things like that. Something else you can try doing is giving yourself time. So if you feel pressure to say yes on the spot, try saying, let me check my schedule and get back to you. And that way it gives you space to think it over and decide if it's something that you really want to do. And that helps you avoid decision fatigue, which happens when you're overwhelmed by too many choices. And when you create that space, you can respond more thoughtfully rather than reacting out of habit. One of the hardest things that I'm learning is that I'm not responsible for how someone else feels about me now. And that's something that takes a lot of time, especially when you're an overthinker at times. Their disappointment is not yours to manage, right? Everyone controls their own reactions. And so that, like, remembering this is about maintaining those healthy emotional boundaries. When you take on someone else's feelings as your own, it makes it really hard to say no. But the truth is, most people understand. And if they don't, that's something that maybe they need to work through. I won't sugarcoat it. At first, saying no will feel awkward, it'll feel uncomfortable, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Just like anything, it's like riding a bicycle. And it's also like building a muscle, right? So the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So the more you say no, the more you'll realize that the world does not fall apart when you say no. And most people respect that. They move on and you're left feeling lighter and more in control of what happens in your life. And that's when it clicks. Saying no isn't the end of the world. It's actually the start of living so much more intentionally. Look, I know how hard it can be to stop people pleasing and start saying no, but also one of the most freeing things you can do for yourself. It's not easy at first, but it's so worth it because every time you say no to something that doesn't align with you, you're saying yes to the things that do. So if you're struggling with this, I want to encourage you, start small. Practice a couple times, practice um, in small steps, and remind yourself your time, energy, and well-being are worth protecting. So if this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's the hardest part of saying no to you? What's the easiest part? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. I really, really appreciate it.